Hey everyone, welcome to another week of Tea with EC. I'm going to read you another fairy tale from my book, The Adventurous Princess and Other Feminist Fairy Tales. And this week's fairy tale is going to be Snow White. And really cool story about this fairy tale. In 2019, a brilliant composer, Rachel Brewer, thanks Rachel, took this fairy tale and set it to music, and it was performed by a choir at the Sydney Opera House, which was a thrilling experience to hear my words from my fairy tale sung by these incredible voices at this amazing location. So with that in mind, here's my retelling of Snow White. Have you got your cup of tea? Once upon a time, there lived a queen who was the most beautiful woman in the land. Now, you may say that it is impossible to objectively judge or compare beauty, or that true beauty is on the inside. But this queen had a magic mirror, which told her just how beautiful she was, and the mirror's opinion was the only one she cared about. Every morning, the queen would stand in front of the mirror and say, "Mirror, mirror on the wall, who is the fairest of them all?" And the mirror would reply, "You, O queen, are fairest of all." The queen had a stepdaughter called Snow White, of whom she was very fond. Snow White was usually an exuberant girl, full of energy, and often found outside, falling in the mud, chasing squirrels, or setting off on haphazard adventures to the edges of the royal garden. But lately, the queen noticed that Snow White had become quiet and withdrawn. She picked at her food and hardly went outside the castle at all. One morning, the queen went to her mirror, the same as usual. But from the doorway, who did she see but Snow White, standing in front of the mirror as the queen usually did, asking, "Mirror, mirror on the wall, who is the fairest of them all?" And to the queen's horror, the mirror replied, "The queen is very fair indeed, but not as fair as you will be." The queen was seized with a terrible jealousy. Look at her youth, she thought. Look at her perfect body. No wrinkles, no stretch marks. She clenched her hands into fists. Suddenly, she realized that Snow White was still talking to the mirror. "What about this?" said Snow White, pointing to her belly. "A bit chubby, but overall still beautiful," said the mirror. "What about these?" she said, pointing to her freckles. "Maybe they'll go away as you get older," said the mirror. Snow White's lips started to tremble. The queen, watching from the doorway, felt unexpectedly angry towards the mirror. Abruptly, she remembered when she had been a child, before she had the mirror, and before anyone started to tell her that she was beautiful. A tear rolled down her cheek as she thought of the little girl who scraped her knees climbing trees to peer into birds' nests, hair all tangled and face smudged with dirt. The queen looked at young Snow White, already beginning to worry about her looks and see her differences as flaws, and she saw the answer. In one motion, despite an inner voice that screamed at her not to, she lifted the mirror from the wall and dashed it to the floor, where it broke into 1,000 silent pieces. She gathered Snow White into the biggest and warmest hug that she could. "You are perfect, just the way you are," she said, "especially those dear freckles." Then the queen took Snow White, and they chased each other through the mud, ate an enormous breakfast, found all the birds' nests in the garden, and lived happily ever after. And here's an illustration from the fairy tale. Thanks for joining me, everyone. As always, if you'd like a copy of The Adventurous Princess, send me a message or check out my website at Erin-Claire.com. And otherwise, I will see you for more fairy tales next Friday. Bye, everyone.